with some chanting. No Trump!
No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No to racism, no to war! Dump Trump! Dump Trump! No to racism, no to war! Dump Trump! Dump Trump! No to racism, no to war! Dump Trump! Dump Trump! No to racism, no to war! Dump Trump! Dump Trump! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! 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 No Trump! Trump! Dump Trump!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump! Dump Trump! Dump Trump! Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA!
No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump!
Racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
Today's important demo in solidarity with Charlottesville and our sister who was brutally murdered in Charlottesville, Heather Heyer. And I think we should do a 1 minute silence out of respect for the family. And we'll start that minute silence now. Okay, welcome everybody to the Stand Up to Trump protest in solidarity with Charlottesville and against neo-Nazi white supremacy. And I'm going to start off with our first speaker, who is Murad Qureshi, the chair of Stop the War Coalition.
Thank you, Maz, for the introduction. Stop the War Coalition is here, standing up to Trump because of his warmongering and defence of bigotry. The man has got form. Since he's entered the White House as President of the United States, one of the first executive orders he wrote and signed off was to increase military expenditure for the Pentagon. This was also to increase and update the nuclear capability, all at the expense of their foreign aid and diplomacy. Added to that now, he's added his rhetoric during the August break, which includes nuclear attack potentially in Korea and also the military option on Venezuela. So much for his peacekeeping. His second and other substantial executive order that he made was his travel ban against Muslims. That's Iranians, Libyans, Iraqis, Syrians, Somalians, Sudanese and Yemenis. Can I remind him, none of them were involved in 9/11. He's added also his rhetoric to that by his defence of white supremacists since the Charlottesville troubles in the USA. That's why we're here protesting against his warmongery and bigotry in front of the US Embassy this Saturday morning. Can we also add that we're here also to protest to the British government to make sure they do not send any troops or weaponry to any action that the Americans may see fit in the Korean Peninsula. And on the back of his bigotry and his warmongery, the Prime Minister today should withdraw immediately his invite for the state visit here in the UK. There'll be a lot of trouble if he comes here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Murad Qureshi. Our next speaker is Kate Hudson from the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament.
Thanks very much, Maz. And can I just start off by sending a message from here today, our solidarity greetings to the people of the United States who in their communities and in their campaigns and organisations are coming together in the same way that we're coming together to fight racism and to fight war. We stand together with them today. And this kind of solidarity, not only within communities, but internationally, across our communities, is more essential than it has ever been. Because I can't personally think of a more dangerous time in world politics for many, many decades. I think we're on the verge, potentially, of a nuclear war. It's closer now, I think, than it's been since the 1980s, when President Reagan was talking about the evil empire of the Soviet Union. Some older of us remember those days, terrifying days. I think these days are no less dangerous, and it's essential that we convey those dangers across wider society and to our politicians, because it's like they're sleepwalking into disaster. They are not recognising what is going on. And I absolutely echo what Murad just said. We have to demand of our leadership, our Prime Minister and the different political party leaders, that they say Britain must not be involved in any military action in the Korean Peninsula. Indeed, we must be demanding the denuclearisation of the Korean Peninsula. That is what is essential. But in terms of President Trump's warmongering, it is not only the terrible and great danger of nuclear war, which could destroy us all, it's also what Murad again referred to, that kind of creeping interventionism. We've seen that over the last decade and more from the US. We also hear now about the threats to military intervention in Venezuela. And I know, like many of you, I've been a long-time supporter of the progressive government in Venezuela since the days of the late President Hugo Chavez. There's been so many attacks on that country, political attacks, economic attacks, undermining that progressive system over there. We need to say, no, we will not stand by and tolerate military attacks being built upon those economic and political attacks. We have to stand together. Again, my message is international solidarity has never been so important. And to finish, Maz, if I could just remind people what's actually going on in Europe, in Eastern Europe, as we speak. The largest NATO military exercises for decades, if not ever. Tens, if not hundreds of thousands of NATO military forces in Eastern Europe up to the Russian border conducting these military exercises, ratcheting up the tension between the West and Russia, of course, creating a much greater threat and increasing international tension. So that is what the US, supported by the UK, is doing on virtually every front. We cannot be silent, we are not silent, and we must escalate our protest and our action against these developments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate Hudson. Now, I lost my father, Murad Saleem, 4 years ago to neo-Nazi terrorists in Birmingham. My father was followed home He was 82 years old. He was brutally stabbed to death by neo-Nazi terrorist Pavlo Lapshin, who went on a bombing campaign and put bombs outside 3 mosques in the West Midlands. This was one of the biggest acts of terrorism in the UK. Yet hardly anyone's heard about it. Have you heard about it? Anyone here? No. And it was just 3 weeks before Lee Rigby's murder. So, you know, we can see the biased media reporting, and we have to stand up and speak out against the real threat of neo-Nazis home and abroad. Now that leads me to my next speaker, who has supported my family and supported me when I lost my father. It's Weyman Bennett from Stand Up to Racism and Unite Against Fascism.
I want to thank Maz for organising this protest and standing up. But I also want to say this clearly. I'm sick and tired of the new word alt-right being put forward. They're not alt-right, these are Nazis, right? If people march down the street saying we're going to stop Jews, saying that we want to kill the LGBT community, saying that Holocaust didn't happen, attacking Muslims, and they turn up armed and are wearing KKK, do not tell me they're just another side with another point of view. They're not. They're Nazis, and they want to rebuild the road to a new Auschwitz. And one Nazi organising on the street is one Nazi too much. And I salute those people that took to the streets, because when people say that freedom of speech is given to us, it's never given to us. What happened? Where was the freedom of speech for Maz's father? The freedom to life comes above the freedom to speech. The question of giving these people a platform is that they'll only use it to build and grow. But what of the gross indignity of a president who cannot tell the difference between a Holocaust survivor on the demonstration and somebody who's a Nazi? There is a problem with the White House. We have a psychopath, racist, misogynist inside the White House who's got his finger on the nuclear trigger. And we have to be clear about that. And the other thing is, when we talk about fighting fascism, fascism starts, it's important that we fight now. People say, where is the BNP? The reason why the BNP aren't here is because we smashed them. The reason why the EDL aren't here is because we smashed them. And when people say that you should allow these people to grow, we have to remember that they murdered a civil rights woman on the streets because that's what they want to do. And we should never ever accept the idea that we can just wait there. The police were on the street, by the way. They were armed, they were there and they were ready. So the idea that you simply ring the police, that's the solution. That's not actually true. And we have to make sure that we defend our democratic society by any way that we can. I do want to add one other thing historically. It's about the statues that they've got. They've got statues to a man called Robert Lee and another one to Stonewall Jackson. These were racist, bastard slave owners. And every statue they've got should be pulled down. And in this world, and the Confederacy might not understand this, you lost the war, right? We beat you. We beat the Confederacy. We beat Robert E. Lee. People came together and broke him. And the reason why we broke him is because he represented the question of slavery. And those statues went up in 1896 when they brought in Jim Crow. They've got nothing at all to do with history. It's the same rewriting of history that Brett Bright do and the rest of them. They want to rewrite history in order for us to go back to the same position where women don't have any rights, where LGBT people don't have any rights. And we've got a message for them. We're not going back. You can burn your crosses. You can put scarves over your head. We will put the crosses out. We'll take the scarves off your head. We'll kick your ass if we have to, if you try and destroy us, because we'll defend what we've got. But I do add one big lesson of warning. We can criticise what's going on in the United States today. There are 400 demonstrations have taken place. We're standing today with solidarity with them. But across the water, there's Marine Le Pen, who's got 8 MEPs inside Parliament. We've got a situation in Europe at the moment where the burqa's been banned, where they decide how Muslim women can go onto the beach. I think we have to organise, reorganise and be ready for those people. They were far too organised when they were there. And that means that we have to organise ourselves. Stand Up to Racism has organised a national conference on the 21st. It's important that they organise in the States, it's important that we organise here. We have to organise across the rest and make sure that those bastards go down into the sewer where they belong. Our organisation is our strength. solidarity, unity, and let's remember our people that stood up for us. Let's remember Heather, and we say never again.
Weyman Bennett. Right, I'm going to continue with some chants and then we'll take a few more speakers. So, no to racism, no to war.
Dumb Trump, dumb Trump.
No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA.
No Trump.
No KKK, no fascist USA. No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA. No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA. No to racism, no to war.
Dumb Trump, dumb Trump.
No to racism, no to war.
Dumb Trump, dumb Trump.
Right, I'm going to take our next speaker, and it is musician, producer, and activist, a Guy Called Gerald.
Hello. I'll stand this way around. I just wanted to. It's going to be really short, but I just wanted to say that within this situation, well, it's been since like when I started to hear the word terrorism from the start. It created like this fear thing, you know, and what it seemed to me to be is a recipe for hate in a way. And I think that when I've seen people sitting on a train and they'll be sat next to someone with like a hijab or something on, and like it doesn't seem like they hate that person. It seems like they're actually frightened, and like I think that's been something that's been introduced into our system. You know, it seems like these things have been like not even learned, but they've been kind of pushed on us. And like what I'm seeing is that that's kind of changing into a hate thing where people, at first it was like, oh, these people are scary, and then it's got to a point where people are starting to attack people like that. And this is something that seems to me reminiscent of like what the Nazis did. You know, like this was like, it seems like something from a handbook or something, where you create like a fear, and that fear turns into like a hate. And I think that's what, it seems to me that that's what's happening at the moment. I just wanted to basically remind people of this. So like when you see people kind of like who are different from you, I mean like I've experienced things like this in the past myself, where like I see a woman walking down the street and like she's probably like half my age, and like, you know, I couldn't run a mile if for a minute if I wanted to, and she sees me and she grabs her handbag, like, and she's not doing it out of like I think she's doing it from a natural kind of reaction, thinking that, oh well, I've heard that these people are criminals or whatever, you know what I mean? But these kind of things are kind of put into the system, and then like they create like some kind of hate or something like that. So basically all I'm saying is like, try and think twice about what you do, you know, your reactions to things. Like when you read the news and then they say stuff like these terrorists, or they use these key words, and we have to like read into these things. You can't just look at it on the surface and say, okay, this is what's happening. We have to be very careful of that. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. Today's protest has been organised by Stand Up to Trump. It is imperative we have a movement that is the opposition to Donald Trump in the USA and Theresa May's state visit. So if you haven't liked the Facebook page, please go on to Stand Up to Trump UK, and we also have a Twitter account, Stand Up to Trump UK. Now I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Chris Nineham, the Vice of Stop the War Coalition.
Thanks very much, Maz, and thanks everyone for coming to this important protest. And it's part of a cycle of protests that are taking place around the world today against Donald Trump, and on both issues, against his appalling, despicable behaviour around the Charlottesville atrocity, but also against the fact that he is ramping up the possibility of war and tensions around the world to an alarming degree. I think it's worth saying that the movement and the opposition to Trump has actually been quite spectacular since he was elected, and you know, we shouldn't forget that, because it's a mixed picture that we face. For one, Donald Trump, if you remember, cast your minds back, was going to be visiting Britain in about a month's time. Well, that ain't gonna happen. And he was kind enough to tell us why. He said he's not going to come over here if he's going to be confronted by demonstrations. So, protest works. We also had the good news last night that I guess all of you know, that Steve Bannon, who is the most reactionary member of the cabinet, has been forced out. Now, some people say that's because of competition between the two, personality clashes, maybe there's an element of that. But the main reason is because there has been, across the USA and across the world, a wave of outrage at the events at Charlottesville and at the way that he didn't respond to them. So that's important. And by the way, I don't think anyone should be surprised, and maybe no one was, but certainly shouldn't be, at the fact that Donald Trump failed to condemn adequately the appalling events there. The reason is, the man's a racist. He was a racist before he became a politician. He was a racist during the campaign, and now he is an open and unashamedly racist president of the United States, the leader of the free world. And that, of course, is a disgrace in itself. On the question of foreign policy, he is indeed.
And racists are suckers for extortion.
All of this is true. On the question of foreign policy, I think we're in the worst place we could possibly be, and it's very, very frightening, because on the one hand, we have a US establishment, a foreign policy establishment, that is across the board united in its desire to pursue a more aggressive foreign policy post-Obama. Don't forget, in the election campaign in the US, Hillary Clinton was more hawkish than Donald Trump when it came to the pre-election rhetoric. The whole of the US foreign policy elites are committed to ramping up war around the world. So we have that on the one hand, and then we have the extremely alarming fact that they are led by the most reactionary, the most xenophobic, the most volatile president in US history probably, a man who is clearly capable of shooting from the hip. Put those two things together and we are clearly in a very, very dangerous position. And this is creating a situation where there are flashpoints, potentially fatal, disastrous flashpoints in a whole number of areas of the world that I can't even list adequately. Kate mentioned some of them and Murad mentioned others. The most, Eastern Europe, the Balkans, obviously the Middle East, and most clearly and dangerously and presently the situation in the Asia Pacific. Now this is a very, very serious crisis that we face. I think perhaps I'll talk it up even more than Kate and say it's the worst crisis in terms of the possibility of nuclear war since the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. It's a very, very serious situation. Whatever the US elites may actually want in their own minds, the fact is that the kind of talk, the kind of rhetoric, the kind of explosive actions we're getting from the President of the United States can create a cycle of escalation that can easily get out of control. And he has boxed himself in because he has said that he's not going to tolerate a North Korean state that has the capacity to strike America with nuclear missiles. Now, whatever the truth of the actual situation behind the scenes, the fact of the matter is we may come to that. And then where does this rhetoric take us? Where does his political position take us? Where is he when it comes to his own base? We have to worry about these things because these things can have an impact on how war and politics unfolds. So for all these reasons, we have to redouble our efforts to oppose Trump, to build Stand Up to Trump, to make sure that we continue this kind of campaigning. We have to step up the fight against racism, and we have to step up the fight against the possibility of further war. It's a very, very serious situation, but I want to end, as I began, by saying it's not a hopeless one, because there are millions of people around the world who have been on the streets, who have been fighting back, who have been campaigning. The anti-fascists, remember, easily outnumbered the fascists at Charlottesville. We have a side, we have a movement, and we have a future to win. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris Nineham. We must never forget millions have fought and died fighting fascism, defeating fascism. and the appalling response from Theresa May, the appalling and delayed response from Theresa May to even criticise Donald Trump on his appalling response. I mean, she had more criticism for the people fixing Big Ben than she had for Donald Trump. So Theresa May, shame on you! Theresa May,
Shame on you!
Theresa May,
Shame on you!
Theresa May,
Shame on you!
Theresa May,
Shame on you!
Theresa May,
Shame on you!
Theresa May,
Shame on you!
Theresa May.
Shame on you!
Now I'm going to bring you to our final speaker for this afternoon's protest, and it's Oktay Shabaz from the Turkish and Kurdish Community Centre, Daima.
Thank you. Hello friends, Oktay here from Daima, it's the Turkish and Kurdish Community Centre. We send our solidarities to our brothers and sisters in America who've been fighting the fascists. Now we have a fascist in our own country. His name is Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And guess what? He was one of the first leaders to go and visit Trump when he was elected. So he kind of shows the mentality. Now what Trump is trying to do in America is what Erdogan is trying to do in Turkey. You know, he's attacking the working class people. You know, he's making their lives miserable. He's arresting journalists, he's arresting teachers, you know, he's arresting academics, and you know, he's fighting, you know, he's having a go at the working class people full on. And to stop people coming together, you know, he's creating divisions. He's creating divisions between communities, Armenians, the Kurds, the Turks, and so on. And he's trying to create almost a sense of almost a civil war. I mean, if Turkey goes into some sort of a civil war in the next 2-3 years, you know, that shouldn't surprise you. And what we're seeing, we're seeing that same model being replicated around Europe and also in America and other parts of the world. The working class people are being attacked. Their rights, you know, their rights for a decent life, their rights for decent jobs, you know, for decent public services. And we are seeing fascism creeping up. We are seeing these people, these evil people trying to divide communities, have a go at communities of all kinds, using fascism and having a go at each other. You know, they're not interested in us coming together and standing for decent jobs, for a decent future, decent education. They are trying to create all that. And what we have to do is, you know, we need to see that this is also capitalism struggling. The capitalism is under pressure. It's quite obvious that when it starts attacking like this, when it starts showing its most brutal sides to people, it means it's suffering. But what we have to do, you know, we have to make sure that it doesn't just suffer, but it goes. It finishes. So what we need to do is we need to raise, you know, and we need to bring that sense of unity, that togetherness. You know, as Weyman said, you know, we were able to smash EDL, smash PMP in this country. You know, and I'm very proud that this country has a strong history of smashing all these racists and fascists. But that sense of, you know, beating the fascists and the racists and kicking them out of the streets need to grow. And as Chris said, we need to make sure that gets bigger and bigger and bigger so that these people don't have any space, you know, on our streets, on our communities. But we need to do that, you know, but we need more people involved. You know, yes, stand up to racism, stop the war. These are very crucial campaign groups. But we need to see the trade unions here. We need to see the political parties here. You know, racism and fascism is not just the issue, it's not our issue. It should be the issue of the trade unions, the political parties. They should all be very clear on this. Yes, we could have a go at Theresa May, but we need to see who are real friends and who are really standing with. So, in that sense, let's make that solidarity bigger. Let's kick the fascists out. Solidarity, brothers and sisters.
Thank you very much, Oktay. Let's also not forget when Theresa May went running over to hold Donald Trump's hand straight after his inauguration, knowing very well he was about to put in a Muslim ban on Holocaust Memorial Day, a day when millions have died, and Theresa May went running over to hold his hand. So once again, Theresa May!
Shame on you!
Theresa May!
Shame on you!
Theresa May!
Shame on you!
Theresa May! to Trump will continue to build the opposition to Donald Trump and continue to oppose the state visit. Theresa May!
Shame on you!
Theresa May!
Shame on you!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! 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 No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
No to racism, no to war!
Dump Trump! Dump Trump!
Theresa May!
Shame on you!
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 Thank you very much for coming today and supporting today's important protest. It means a lot. And let's continue to challenge Trump and fight him every step of the way. And let's continue to challenge our Prime Minister as well. And please like the Stand Up to Trump page on Facebook and Stand Up to Trump UK on Twitter. Thank you very much.